Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today to finally talk about the Marvel Champions Campaign Contest.
Yeah.
I'm your host, Alicia Gensch, and I am joined by three of the amazing Marvel Champions designers, starting with...
Frank Brooks, senior designer, game designer, he, him.
Aaron Haltom, regular game designer.
Tony, say it as fast as you can.
Tony Fanchi, senior game designer, he, him.
Ooh, yeah. We're a little unhinged today. But
It's warm in here.
it is very warm.
I also am wearing a hoodie, so it doesn't
It's a
help.
very cool hoodie, though.
Thank you.
So before we kick into the meat and potatoes of the campaign contest, we just wanted to shout out for everybody in case you missed it. We had a hero pack reveal this morning. So the Black Panther hero pack with Shuri got revealed this morning on our website. I think our chat operator is going to pop that link to that article over on our website. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely go check it out.
But after the stream.
But after the stream.
Or check the
Priorities.
window? I don't know.
Yeah. Double monitors. But yeah, we can start talking about the campaign contest. Tony, would you want to give just a little overview of what the contest was and is?
Yeah. So what we did was we asked the audience of players of Marvel Champions to put together your own dream campaign, taking products that we've already released and stringing the scenarios in them together in a fun and unique way. So some things we looked at are what is the story that everybody's trying to tell? What are the interesting mods or campaign cards that they included in the campaign? Which scenarios did they pick, and what fun ways did they find to combine different scenarios from different products?
Yeah, definitely we saw some pretty cool storylines coming through. Lots
Yeah.
of really fun fan scenarios. I know we had at least one party, which is pretty cool. There's actually a couple parties.
Yeah.
A couple parties that made their way in there.
Yeah.
Timeline shenanigans all around.
Oh,
Yeah, lots of cool timelines. Frank and Aaron, do you want to talk just a little bit about the criteria you all were looking for as we were reviewing submissions?
Yeah. The ones we were factoring in were creativity, originality, and playability. So they obviously originality and creativity can feel very similar, but part of it was the originality was were you the only person to come up with this idea? Which there were a lot of kind of overlapping themes, but some did definitely stand out in that regard. Creativity it might just be more leveraging the assets in novel ways, using modular sets to highlight a certain mechanic, or lots of fun, creative directions. And then playability was just like, how well did you let us play the game you wanted to play? There was a little bit of factor of just like how many products you included, which I think is also a bit about what you guys could do that we can't normally do. Our campaigns, we want to be basically you buy the campaign and the core set, you're good to go. But with these, we wanted people to be as creative as they can. And so people definitely grabbed modular sets from this, that, and the other product and required specific heroes and did lots of fun that like we don't usually get to play with. So it's really fun to see that side of things.
Yeah. And playability also has to do with like things like if the rules were really clear, easy to grok, and
And how much do you have to remember during the game in order to play it correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that highlights another element of there's definitely some people who wished that they could have just made cards.
Yeah,
Because they
yeah.
just sort of like, and also make sure this is happening at the same time. So it'd be hard to just purely take all the cards and clump them together. So there definitely were some times where people would add like victory to things that didn't have it already, so that it would be removed when it was defeated, or otherwise, break what the cards do normally.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as like the challenges, the pros versus cons of what the fans can do versus what we can do, obviously the fans can take stuff from any product, which gives you a lot of freedom, but that restriction of not being able to make any cards is a real drawback for the fan content. So they each have their own pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
Well, and it's different types of constraints too. I mean, when you all are designing for a new campaign box, you're thinking about this is a very specific moment in time with these specific heroes versus these specific villains. And when we kind of turned the rest of everyone loose, or all the fans loose on this, they can kind of pick and choose. So to kind of balance that, it's work with the cards that we have.
Yeah.
So it's just two very interesting kind of design sandboxes,
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
in. Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's why you see the recurring theme. I think a lot of the players doing the multiversal stuff
Yeah.
and the timeline stuff, because it's like we want to be able to mix and match from lots of different areas, and what's the story that's going to make sense of that.
Yes.
And
How can we coherently put a bunch of random things together?
all,
Yeah.
all roads lead to Mojo.
Yes.
Yeah, a bunch of people did use Mojo as kind of the framing device for the campaign. Kang was another big one, which is why you can see him on the screen here. Just time shenanigans allows you to put whatever you want and not have to think too hard about why it's there.
Right.
Yeah, you can revisit like battles that would only happen once, or leveraging the fact that the campaign, like when you play against a villain, it's a specific scenario. So it's like, why are we doing this? Specific constraint of like, we're in a gladiator fight. What?
Sure.
How?
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry about it. We're there because King brought us back there
Yep.
at this one specific time. So that helped make the glue for the campaigns for a lot of them.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we did have some like tiebreakers. So when our scores came down to being pretty similar, we gave bonus points sometimes to like just fun factor. How interested are we to actually try out this scenario? Polish and presentation. A lot of people put a lot of time into these, which we don't want to require you to have graphic design skills to do this. But if you put in that extra effort, it definitely showed. And we gave a little bit of a bonus there. And just narrative, how fun is the story that you're telling, and how well are you capturing the characters who you are doing the voices of when you're writing your story?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there are some people are really good at the narrative part where I'm like, I wonder what your day job is. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
You did a pretty good job of like evoking, like you said, with the voices, right? Where it's like, oh, that's what Mojo sounds like when he talks. That's how this character behaves. So there were some people that were good at embodying that part. And yeah, to the fun factor element, a story could be creative and original, and you can play it, but like, do you want to play it?
Right.
That is
Yeah.
such a
Right.
good question. Yeah.
But yeah, usually if all the other parts are working, it's also pretty fun. But like, there is the possibility that you can have a coherent all those other parts, and it's just like, seems like a slog, but
Yeah, it could be the crunchiest scenario you have ever played,
Yeah.
and that could be really, really good, or it could be maybe not so good.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Did y'all, when you were kind of reviewing all of the large volume of submissions we received, did we see any other kind of themes recurring? I know we talked about time travel quite a bit. I think there was some fourth wall breaking too.
Yeah, there
Is that
was a
right?
fair
Yeah.
amount
Oh,
of,
yeah.
we had Deadpool and She-Hulk
Yeah.
appeared a lot because they're the heroes who often break the fourth wall. We also saw a lot of use of the Mojo Mania scenario, or
cool.
modular sets, because they so well kind of capture a genre, whether that's Western or horror or fantasy.
Yeah.
They could be used as a great little flavoring device on whatever scenario you're running. We also saw the modular sets from the Mr. Sinister scenario from
fun,
Next
yeah.
Evolution. The ones that have setup cards that really impact the start of the game. So you can make the scenario a little bit challenging And I think a lot of players find that as a way to shake things up and make a scenario that might seem a little bit easier feel a little bit more challenging.
I think Rhino was someone or a villain that we saw pretty frequently too. Is that right?
Yeah, you'd
Yeah?
think people would be sick of playing Rhino, but he's really popular, and he always makes a show up. He's a great intro villain.
Yes. Yeah, because like if you look at the campaign structure we've done, we usually start with a more simple to understand villain, getting your feet under you, remembering like, oh yeah, this is how we play. This is the theme of the campaign we're about to begin on, and then kind of introduce more complex mechanics as we go. So yeah, Rhino is that like stereotypical version of that concept.
The archetypal bruiser.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of villains, what other villains besides Rhino did we see often? I think
Kang and Mojo.
Kang and Mojo for sure.
Ultron is still very popular. Another
Yes.
core set one that
Yeah.
appears a lot. Do you guys remember any others that stand out?
I think Apocalypse, partially
Yeah.
due to like how new he is, and like the fun. I mean, there's like two versions too, right? So the playing with that space of like a huge big bad to perhaps wrap up the campaign, or otherwise just be a fun big threat at the end.
Yeah. Very, very good ending threat to go up against with some of those heroes. So awesome. Anything else we want to talk about just with like vetting criteria before we get into honorable mentions?
So another thing we saw that
Yeah.
was pretty common was like branching narratives in the campaigns. Aaron, do you want to talk about kind of some of the things we saw in that regard?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a lot more like choose your own adventure style. You kind of had the campaign log with multiple different possible things that could happen, and you would note them, and then you would get different narrative outcomes, and they would write the little blurbs for it, which is kind of other LCGs do that, but Marvel Champions doesn't do that very much because the way that we generally have to, our constraints when we're making campaigns is we have to write a comic book. You know what I mean? And the comic book tells sort of the official narrative of what happened in these. So we don't get to play with the branching narrative as easily as you could, if you're breaking it down into a bunch of different little paragraphs of text. So they got to leverage that's another way they could do things we can't do.
Yeah, some of them played a little closer to something like Arkham Horror in that, in the sense of like having that branching narrative or consequences of your game having specific narrative implications, as well as like, and do this for the next scenario.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun to see people embracing that and departing from our style.
Yeah, and really being able to be creative again within that sandbox of, no, you can't make any cards, but what else you got?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What other ways can you kind of configure these pieces together to make something that's unique and something that people want to play? Just for different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The last part I was thinking about was when you were talking about criteria. We used very similar judging criteria to the last time we ran the campaign, which was a while ago.
22, I believe.
22? Yeah.
So the idea that we were considering maybe slightly adjusting those, we'll obviously announce any changes to future campaign stuff before they come out, but like those considerations of creativity and originality and playability are all very important traits. But yeah, that element of that fun factor is definitely something that shows up. And there is a question of, do we want to lean more into the narrative side? Because like I said, there were some that those were what made it really fun. That it had such good writing or trying to make it logical why you're doing all the weird stuff that you're doing. And so that justification for why this modular set's here or what have you definitely contributed to why I wanted to play the scenario.
I'm a sucker for good writing. If there's good writing, I was like, where can I give the points for that?
Where's that on my grading sheet?
Right.
Yeah. A question that we got in the chat was about how many submissions we received, which I think was about 40.
It was a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot, which was fabulous. So thank you everyone so much for submitting. I know that again, y'all took a look at every single submission.
Yeah.
So and
There were a lot of great ones, and we wish we could have given out more awards than we did.
yeah. And we just want to give a special shout out to our writer Peter, who also helped a ton with this entire campaign contest. So thank you, Peter. Can't do it without you. Without further ado, Should we talk about honorable mention?
Yes.
Okay, and we should say too up at the top, this is no particular order.
Yeah.
This is just the way that we wrote the list. So yeah, Kang and Mojo. Okay, yeah, we talked about Kang and Mojo. Let's see, what is our first?
AVX, I think.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's it.
I think Aaron's
Yes.
going first.
Yeah, Aaron.
So for this is the AVX, the Phoenix Arrival campaign by Scott and Ryan Clapp, and it's sort of starts with Nova crash landing on Earth, forewarning everyone that the Phoenix Force is arriving, which is always a huge cataclysmic type event whenever that happens. Yeah. Uh-oh, here comes the Phoenix Force.
Oh
guys.
no.
So then what's really cool about this campaign is it splits off into two different routes you can take. You can either be the X-Men as they prepare for this threat and deal with this threat's fallout, or the Avengers as you do the same thing. And they're two very different approaches to how you're going to deal with this crisis. So basically they created two completely different campaigns and layered them next to each other and let you choose your own adventure. So
amazing.
it was a lot of work and a really cool mechanic, a really cool way to go through it. Yeah.
And I think that was submitted by Scott and Ryan Clapp as
Yeah.
well. So we want to give some shout outs because I hope some of you are here in the chat. If you are, feel free to be like, that was me. Tony, do you want to talk a little bit about Time Warp?
Yeah, so Time Warp was done by Jalissa Cruz. Had some really fun playing with traits. So you could only bring certain allies in your deck with certain traits, and then your hero and your identity-specific ally would get those traits. So it really shakes things up by allowing a bunch of heroes who aren't normally able to use specific cool cards that are trait-locked in a fun way that you wouldn't normally be able to do so. So I thought that was a really interesting and fun element of that campaign. It also included these burden points, which is kind of you get more rewards for doing better kind of thing. Like you want to clean up the board, make sure there's no side schemes around, make sure there's no enemies left over. And the better you can do that, you either get rewards for doing well or you can get some punishments if you do too poorly.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like mini achievements. Like as you clear. Yeah, that's really fun. Frank, do you want to talk about Battle World Beatdown?
Sure. Battle World Beatdown was by Corbin McKeon, I believe. So this one was visited the story of Battle World, which is from the Secret Wars storyline. A fun. I mean, this is another thing other people. We never went there yet, as far as having everyone being brought together, which is a pretty chaotic. Why are we all here? Because the narrative declares it. So it works totally well for this sort of scenario where you randomly having to combine storylines together. But yeah, the narrative and the sequence of the scenarios that you play changed based on which environment card you drew during your first scenario. So basically, Dark Beast shows up and everyone's, oh, hey, great, you're here. But that is a portent of doom, as the consequences of randomly drawing an environment would choose where the story goes next. So
neat.
it was kind of, you could presumably on replays just choose a different environment instead of having to rely on random chance to give you that. But yeah, it's cool that was the declarative of why you would change scenarios or which path you took. But yeah, that was a fun one.
That's really cool. Yeah. Tony, do you want to take us through Rise of the Four Horsemen?
Yeah, so this one was by Steve Micah, who some of you may know as Steve from the Critical Encounters podcast. Hey, Steve, hope you're
Steve.
watching. Great podcast. It's all about the villains and encounter sets in this game, which a lot of our content creators don't cover as much. So if you want to learn the history of all these bad guys that you've never met before or never seen before, that's a great place to check it out. But anyway, Steve had this great idea, this conceit for the campaign, which is that Apocalypse is looking for new horsemen for bringing about the apocalypse. And his contenders are the Wrecking Crew and the Sinister Six. So during this campaign, you're using the Wrecking Crew and Sinister 6 modular sets. The more that each individual minion shows up, the more likely it's going to be to show up in your finale, at which point each of the Horsemen in the 4 Horsemen campaign gets the abilities on the minions for the Horsemen, the characters who become that Horseman. So I thought that was a really fun conceit.
It's really creative.
Yeah.
He didn't want to just take out like a WAN ad or something.
No, we gotta try them out.
Battle
We gotta
test
try
them.
your
Battle
battle
test
test it. Yeah. Frank, do you want to take us through the final countdown?
Sure. The Final Countdown is
Final Countdown.
our final one by Adam Heck. This one, the story revolves around Mr. Sinister and the creation of technology that lets anyone become a superhero. So this was a fun one that plays with the Mr. Sinister modular sets, the strength, flight, etc., which we saw in other ones as well. It's kind of a fun way to play with like this character. Basically, this villain now has this superpower. So that was another kind of fun conceit that people were able to leverage, and this one did as well. But let you take upgrades and such to make your hero better, giving you new traits and things. So it was more around the like hero customization options, which is another interesting design space we didn't talk much about earlier. But a few campaigns had chosen to like make you play your hero differently, because often it's like more about what the campaign is, what the villain's doing, and what the encounter deck's doing to you. But this one really leaned into you're playing a different game because your hero is different. And this one also had time counters in it, so you were like against the clock, and so you could take side actions basically at the F between scenarios to get other upgrades, such as choosing to take mutation powers, but at the cost of time. And if you ran out of time, you lose the campaign.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, definitely like pacing against the clock with these time counters and. Yeah, really cool. So yeah, again, everybody, thank you so much for those submissions and the honorable mention winners. Speaking of winners, I think it's time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, in no particular order, we're going to start digging deep into some of these winning scenarios. And I think our first one is She-Hulk versus Deadpool's game night. Yeah.
Game night.
Game night.
Yes.
So yeah, Tony, would you want to talk us through just like the pitch or like kind of like the overview of this this submission?
Yeah, so this was submitted by Kurt Hake or Hockey.
Whoa!
Nice.
Where did you have that?
I just had it. You got to celebrate though. Good job, Kurt.
Now we should say too, winners don't get money. This is fake. It has money printed on it. It says money. But
Not
yeah,
legal tender.
Not legal.
definitely not legal. That's amazing. Thank you,
Well,
Frank.
that fourth wall break is very appropriate because this was a very fun campaign that's pitting She-Hulk versus Deadpool in this contest of these various metagames that you're playing out as you're going through the campaign. And one of the aspects that I found really fun about this campaign was that some of the scenarios have added rules that really give you a kind of feeling of being in another Fantasy Flight living card game.
Yeah.
So like, let me get my examples here. So
I know
in
Arkham Horror. Yeah.
in the Lord of the Rings version of the scenario, all of the minions gain villainous. So in the Lord of the Rings card game, shadow cards are a thing that every enemy gets and not just the villain. So that was kind of a callback to that game. There's a scenario based around like Netrunner, where you have these ice tokens that you place on side schemes, and they basically serve to absorb threat removal. So they're kind of like some extra threat on there. And then for the Arkham Horror scenario, as you mentioned, every hero starts with a number of sanity counters on their identity. And every time you reveal a treachery card, you have to remove a sanity counter. And if you remove all of them, you're eliminated. But if you go back to Alter Ego and recover, you get some sanity back.
Oh, it's very fun.
They thought they could flatter us by making their fourth wall break jokes about us, and they were right.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were right.
Yeah, we all place that very highly, partially because we're very familiar and it's kind of fun to joke about us. But yeah, another thing that I think was a bit of a departure from some other ones was the fail forward mechanic. So this is very Arkham Horror in the sense that instead of just you win, you move on, you can lose and the scenario has consequences, but you keep going. So you don't have to replay it or whatnot.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of my favorite mechanics, especially in like legacy style games. So it's fun to see that come over to an LCG specifically with Marvel Champions and see what that feels like instead of just, okay, we're defeated, we have to try this again. It's okay, well, it didn't go great, but I think we
still
can
move on.
But we still get to move on.
Yeah.
Another departure was it did require someone play She-Hulk. So usually we shy away from like requiring a specific character to play through it. But again, the goal of this was to play a specific story. And so we had you play as She-Hulk. You can't play as Deadpool because he's sort of like another character that you interact with. I believe he becomes an ally at the end. But like, he's sort of, spoiler alert.
Oh my gosh.
But he kind of is like a foil to you, right? He's the one making you do all of these games. So you can't play as him because it wouldn't make sense.
And my favorite part of this campaign was the pool reward pool, the pool pool.
Pool.
It's different. You get to choose different cards from the Deadpool aspect, from the pool aspect every time you complete a scenario, and then so there's this growing pool of cards that get shuffled into your deck. So it gives you some sense of reward and some sense of agency of what you're getting, but it also gives a sense of increasing chaos as the campaign wears on, because by the end of the campaign you have a lot of these cards shuffled into your deck that you didn't really intend to have in your deck, and it's a mixed bag of what's going to happen from that.
Is this helpful? No.
Yeah.
Is this fun? Yes.
As Deadpool intended.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I believe you can't actually be the pool aspect because of this, right?
That,
So
yeah.
another like little design constraint to your hero that we normally don't do.
That's cool. Awesome. Anything else we want to talk about this one before we move on?
Nope.
Hilarious. Thank you.
Hilarious.
The narrative writing in this one was very good.
Yeah, really fun. I think our next winner that we're going to talk about is House of Mojo. And Aaron, do you want to give us just a little summary of this one?
House of Mojo has the players versus Mojo, of course. He has teleported everyone to his dimension, and he's pitting the players against this sort of linear scenario that he has you play against. And it's like steering into all the fun TV tropes, and it also has a cool. It uses a ton of different campaigns. Yeah,
We have all the
He's got the
campaign
huge.
scenarios in front of us too. So
Yeah.
we're like, and this, and this, yes.
So yeah, it's kind of another one of those that's like a greatest hits kind of tour that goes through a lot of like the best big bads that you want to fight against. Yeah.
So fun. Yeah.
Yeah, this one was another one for me that the narrative really stood out.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of great jokes and fourth wall breaks in this one. Like, you think you're hearing Professor X telling you, oh, we've got this critical crisis. That'll be great for the ratings.
Yeah, like how
Yeah.
Professor X normally talks,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Totally normal, very on character for them.
Yeah.
We didn't mention, but Amanda Shagri, I believe.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Shagri
Yeah,
Yeah,
congrats,
that's-
Amanda.
wrote this one.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, we definitely touched on the narrative. I feel that was a really, really big component with this this scenario too, or this campaign.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was a blast.
Yeah. Moving right along, Frank, do you want to talk to us about the Watchers team?
Sure.
What if?
Yes, this one by Zach Gosha. This one plays into the what if side of Marvel, where we think about what it would be like if one small change happened to somebody's origin story. So in this one, it did also lean heavily into you play as different specific heroes with specific changes to their storyline. This one also had the closest to like actually looks like our campaign using our layout and stuff.
Yeah, it's really
So
fun.
It's kind of fun using some art and things. But yeah, ultimately you would play as like if Iron Man was from the age of Arthur.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that was
King
like the
Arthur.
first one. I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
Yeah, so like all of them were drawn from specific old What If comics. So it's kind of fun to visit those, and slowly you build up your cast of random, time shifted versions of these characters to play together. So.
Yeah, each of them included some kind of special aspect card that it really calls back to that specific hero. So like Spider-Man as Sorcerer Supreme, you get to start with Sorcerer Supreme in play, and you gain the Sorcerer
cool.
or the Mystic traits. So
Yeah.
you can play all those spells and stuff as Spidey.
Which is awesome.
Iron
Rogue.
Man had Godslayer. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
That's the cool sword I was trying to figure out. Yep.
Remember what his-
Rogue has the power of Thor, so she gets to use Yarnbjorn and start with that in play.
Yeah.
And then Punisher becomes Captain America, so you have to have a minimum number of weapons in your deck, and you start with the locked and loaded side scheme in play, which lets you go get a weapon when you defeat it. So this one was great from again, that theme really coming through of capturing the feeling of twisting the way that you play these heroes in a fun and interesting way.
Yeah, and all of them had a specific side scheme that started. You mentioned the one, but they all have that to help reinforce it, because you would start with a card. It would do all these things to really make you feel like your character's playing differently. So it was kind of fun, but it did force you to play that character. But like, great, it's kind of fun to have to do stuff sometimes.
Well, and I think too, being able to play a scenario like that, you might be playing a hero that normally you don't gravitate towards,
Yeah.
and that's fun
Yeah.
too. It's a fun challenge to be able to play in a new way with maybe a hero you don't bring to the table very
Yeah,
often.
absolutely.
It gives you a reason to explore those less explored heroes or ones you haven't played in a while.
Yeah,
Right,
revisit
exactly.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think our next one is Revenge of the Black Order. Aaron, do you want to talk a little bit just about this one?
Yeah. This was super cool because it's a story about the Black Order comes to Earth, is invading again. You're getting attacked by all these villains, but it's another one with branching storylines. So you get to choose where you are when the invasion happens, and that walks you through 3 completely different ways that the story can play out. So it's
amazing.
very ambitious. Let me see if I can find the whole. There's a whole flow chart of.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
I think it's on the back.
Oh, was it in here?
Is it in
The
here?
back
There
of
we
that.
go.
Yeah.
It's a longer rule book because
Yeah.
you've
Oh,
got
yes.
all these various branching paths, which is another constraint that we have to deal with. Our rule books can
the-
only be so long to fit in the box.
Right.
Yeah. It's
And
like,
these are the print versions, so they can be as long as they need to be.
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's like the first response is one path. If special ops is another path, direct assault is another path, and each one not only like walks you through the scenarios in different order, but also has different constraints on who your identities can be. So
Yeah.
they're sort of telling a story based on your alter ego has to be Asgard, Inhuman, Mutant, or Outlaw for direct assault, and so on and so forth. I won't go through all of them, but yeah.
This was by Carl Resch too.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Did
Thank you.
mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one to take on the narrative from different points of view with the different scenarios. So
Well, and it's not replayability. Too.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, you'd be able to play
Come back
theoretically,
and-
play a different path to that last scenario and that kind of stuff. So that's also really, really interesting and fun.
The rules even have a recommended play order for if you wanted to do the 3 campaigns, taking the 3 different pathways back to back to back.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's really cool.
And they also have you track, every time you defeat a member of the Black Order, you check them off the checklist here.
Oh, it's like a bounty roster.
Yeah. And that can affect the final scenario, and then also you get different outcomes based on each thing that you can do in each encounter. So you can secure the safe house, you can get the shawarma, you can
Get the shawarma.
Get the shawarma.
Important.
They track all these fun things. Yeah.
That's super, and a little bit breaky fourth wall stuff. Yeah, that's really, really cool. Awesome.
Again, more like Arkham than Marvel in the degree of different narrative paths and the degree of tracking things in the campaign log and having different outcomes based on them, which is people really enjoy feeling like they're having a real
impact
on the narrative. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Alrighty, I think our next one is Alias Investigations.
This is our last one.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this is, oh my goodness, it is.
Yeah.
Tony, do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, so this is another one that was great. This was by Christian Fecteau. And basically the story is you are helping Jessica Jones solve this kidnapping mystery. And so this has a really cool clue deck where for the first scenario, you have 3 different minions who could show up who are your kidnappers. In the second scenario, you have 3 different potential side schemes that you have to face that determines what the final villain is that you face down. And all along, you have Jessica Jones there. You start with her in play as an ally. You try to keep her alive because you get penalized if she is defeated.
Cool.
But she's there helping you along, and it tells a great story and really captures the theme of you are helping Jessica on this mystery. And so there's a great replayability there with you never know which minion you're going to get scenario 1, which side scheme you'll get scenario 2. It really changes things up each time you play.
That is really fun.
Yeah. And like sometimes we've given you an ally you have to have, and so this one does as well with Jessica. So it is kind of fun to have her as that recurring character. So that is another way we kind of leveraged cards that you have in a way that isn't too hard for you to remember, that there's the extra text of does not cut against your limit, blah, 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 isn't hard to do.
Right.
And it's so built into the story that it's easy to remember that that's the mechanic you have to do. But, yeah.
They gave her victory -1, which I thought was a really cute way of saying, like, if she's
Don't
defeated,
lose
set her aside. Remember that she was defeated. That comes into play in the campaign later. But the -1 point is also like, so you know it's bad.
Don't do it.
Don't do
Yeah,
that.
that's a way that we often signpost, don't let this thing go because it's bad for you.
You're
So
right.
even if the victory points don't matter, it's just a little signal to the players, oh, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that -1. Yeah, awesome. Wow.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many great submissions, so many
Yeah.
we wish could have been on the stream today, but
Yeah.
thank you all so much for
Yeah.
all your work and efforts. It was a lot of joy reading through all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everyone so much for your patience while we battled holidays, snowstorm, illness, all to get here today. So very, very much appreciated for everybody's patience. I think that takes us just about to the end. The only other thing that we wanted to mention is that the Marvel Champions Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spoiler season is continuing.
Yeah.
So exciting.
So exciting. So every Tuesday and Friday, couldn't remember, what day is it? Where are we? Tuesday.
When are we?
When are we? All of the time travel in these,
Exactly.
in these campaigns. Tuesdays and Fridays on our social media accounts, we'll be sharing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spoilers. So make sure you follow us over there and keep an eye on the website for further articles detailing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know in February we'll be right here back at the table where we will actually be playing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And I think until next week.
Did we say we're going to share these with you as well, the world, at some point? Yeah.
We are.
Yes.
That is the one.
Yeah, this wasn't the only exposure to it you're going to get.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. So our team is working on detailing and getting these all ready to post on our website. So again, we'll make sure to share that either on a future live stream, social media, so folks can take a closer look at all of these awesome submissions and try them out at their own tables, which is super fun. So I think with that, that is the end. So again, thank you everyone so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here real soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.